Resolution 615 is designed to address sort of the issue of the budget bill and the embedded increases in either fees or tax rates, or the creation of novel fees or taxes through the budget independent of any separate legislative initiative. So what this constitutional amendment would do is it would simply say that in order to appropriate funds, the budget appropriates the funds and spends those funds. But in order to either raise a new fee or tax or raise the rate of an existing fee or tax, you could not do that solely through the budget bill. You would have to have separate standalone legislation. And in order to eliminate an existing deduction or credit or reduce the rate that someone could claim, a Virginia taxpayer could claim for that reduction or credit, you would have to have a separate standalone legislative bill that couldn't be done solely and exclusively through language in the budget bill. In effect, what we're doing is we're adopting the single object rule for the budget in the same way we have a single object rule for standalone legislation. And what we're basically saying is there'd be transparency in the budgetary process, so that you have to know ahead of time what the tax rate, the tax fee, and the available revenue sources were before and then you take the governor's economic forecast based on that existing fee structure and tax code, and then that would be the money that would be available to you. You couldn't raise a fee or a tax solely and exclusively through the budget bill itself.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone else wish to speak to the bill? For the bill? Report. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Gordon again on behalf of the Prince William Chamber of Commerce. We support this bill. We think it's critically important that all fees and taxes that are going to be levied on Virginia citizens and businesses be given the full vetting of the legislative process. And we would ask for you to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for the bill? Speak for the bill? No, Ron? Full court? No, I'm sorry.
Baker.
Senator House.
How about tuition charges and things like that?
Well, my understanding of the way tuition is set right now, in the aftermath of the passage of the charter bills, is that the Board of Visitors of the various universities are semi-autonomous, if not completely autonomous, in their decision-making about tuition. We can give them legislative direction, but my understanding is they set the fees independent of anything we do here. But if in fact, I don't know that that's general fund, it's non-general fund, and so I'm not sure how this would affect their ability to do that, Senator. I have to say the honest answer is I don't know, but I don't think this bill changes the way that tuitions would be set at the universities, if this constitutional amendment were to pass.
No, Mr. Chair, I was just trying to read quickly. I apologize, I haven't read the bill until now, but when it talks about fees, the thing about tuition, other fees and charges by the universities, which ended up being reflected in our non-general fund, but they get reflected in the budget anyway. So I was unclear whether the prohibition as proposed in this bill would go that far or not. I mean, I'm just trying to read it and understand.
I think in the mechanics of it, if I were just going to give you a simple ABC in order chronologically, sometime in the fall, the government's really about answering two questions. Who decides, who pays? The first question is, who decides how much revenue we're going to have to expend in our budget? Because the Constitution requires us to pass a balanced budget. The governor is the person in this process who's given the authority to make revenue forecasts based on economic indicators, leading economic indicators, and the present tax code, fee schedule, deductions, and credits within the tax code. He then gives that number to the appropriators, and they know that that's the amount of money they've got available to them. Okay? That's the predicted pot of revenue. All this bill would then say is, B, if you want to spend above and beyond that revenue, the only way you can do that is by passing separate standalone legislation, either in the House or Senate, that passes through both bodies. That says, okay, we're going to raise the gasoline tax. We're going to eliminate a deduction that you can currently get, or a tax credit, or a refundable tax credit. Right? That would have to happen through standalone legislation, and then it basically says you've got to put the horse in front of the cart. You've got to raise the revenue through an independent legislative bill before you can embed that additional anticipated spending into your appropriations bill, into your budget.
I'm going to take a stab at this, so bear with me as I try to construct it. So 30 minutes ago, Delegate Putney's Virginia Retirement System bill failed to advance. In the fiscal notes that we had, Delegate Putney's VRS benefit change would have required a surcharge to be created to offset the increase necessary for contributions to the Virginia Retirement System to pay for the cost of that optional benefit. I don't think there was any question about a surcharge would be created. So when I see a bill like this, I try and say, how would it impact some of the other legislation we've dealt with? Do you think that in its strictest interpretation, the matter that you bring before us would preclude us from addressing the VRS matter in Part 5 of the budget bill?
I'm mindful of the fact that Delegate Putney is the chairman of the House Appropriations, and not having read with any detail his bill, I will say this. If in fact his bill would impose, continue, increase, or revive a tax, a fee, or a fine, then it would have to be standalone legislation. As I understand it, his bill is standalone legislation, and that legislation would have to pass both the House and the Senate and be enacted into law before the revenue, the anticipated additional revenue that was created by the creation or the raising of the rate of an existing tax, before that additional revenue could be embedded in the budget. You'd have to put that horse in front of the budget cart that would spend the money created by that horse. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Anyone else wish to speak to the bill? Anyone else? What's your pleasure on the bill? Bill before us. Have a motion on the bill? Oh, Janis, you go die for lack of a motion.
I thank the chairman and the members of the committee.